Welcome to the webinar Contract Management in PPP, Some Lessons Learned from Latin America. I would like to thank WBI for organizing this webinar. This is part of a series on PPPs that the World Bank Institute is organizing for our clients. I welcome also all my colleagues from the bank and also from different regions, especially from Latin America. Today, we are going to have a very brief presentations. Then you will have the opportunity to make questions by the email that already you can access right now. And after that, after my answers, even I cannot maybe finish all the answers, you will have the opportunity to send me emails so I can finish completing the answers for you. At the end, we are going to have a quiz where you will have 4 questions and you will have the opportunity to make your answers. And make sure I will comment the answers at the end, and also I will ask you for a feedback, because this series is improving at every time, and we need your feedback to make sure that we are making the right thing. So welcome again to the webinar Contract Management in PPPs, and we are going to start. Today we are going to discuss what is the story in the PPP sector in Latin America and why we have to focus now on contract management, because this is very important part of the PPP cycle. Then we are going to take a look about what is happening in the institutional arrangements for contract management in Latin America. We will have different kind of agencies and units doing this kind of work, how they work, how they organize it. And then we are going to have a little discussion about what is the connection between the bid mechanism in the PPP contracts and contract management. This is very important because most of the problems that we find during the contract management are part of the PPP structuring. And at the end, we are going to summarize and identify some practical lessons that we have found in Latin America. Okay, in Latin America, the PPPs started 25 years ago. The first PPPs started in Mexico. Mexico signed a free trade agreement with North America, US and Canada. And they decided to implement roads to connect better with the US. In the best way that they decided to implement this road was as a concession, as a PPP. So the first country in Latin America that has a large PPP program in the 90s, the end of the 80s and 90s was Mexico. Then from Mexico we go to Colombia. At the beginning of the 90s, Colombia implemented a very good program in the port sector. I was the pioneer in the region, and after that, with these kind of lessons, Chile and Brazil started implementing PPPs in ports, also in roads, most of them in the main ports and main roads of these countries. Peru, at the middle of the 90s, also started with a very important program. In the first stage in roads and later in airports and ports. Then Panama, very important ports in the Pacific, in the Atlantic sides, that connects very well the Panama Canal, and also with a railroad that connects both oceans. Today they have more than around 20 years these PPPs. Then we go to Costa Rica. At the end of the 90s, they started making roads and ports. Until today, they have around 5 PPP contracts, and they have to improve their program in the coming years. In the last years, we can see new players in the region, like Uruguay, like Honduras, like Guatemala. These countries in the last 2-3 years have approved their PPP bills, to attract private sector to invest in PPPs. Also in El Salvador last year, we the parliament approved the PPP law, so they are not starting their programs. The last country that have already set up the regulations for PPPs was Paraguay. Only a few months ago, the parliament and the government together approved a PPP bill to start a PPP program. The last countries have to learn from the other countries. In the region, we have 5 countries that concentrates around 70% of the projects or around 80% of the total investment in PPPs. I'm talking about Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. These 5 countries with around 25 years making PPPs, they have a lot of lessons that we can share, not only for the region, also for other regions in the world. But what is happening? What is happening in PPPs? We have a gap, a big gap between the way we structure projects that we have improved very well in the region in the last 20 years and the way we manage the contracts. There is a big gap. The governments are making a lot of efforts trying to improve project structuring, project preparation, but the efforts in contract management are not at less. So we have to work this second area. So if we take a look at the PPP cycle, we can find that we have 7 components. 7 components. And you can see in the screen, the blue ones has to do with the project preparations. And we can identify the project appraisal. This means that how the project comes, what is the origination of the project. The project can be from a public initiative or can be from an unsolicited proposal. Then this project has to be tested. What is if this project can be implemented as a PPP or can be implemented as a public procurement. So this is the project appraisal. Then when the project finally the government decided to as a PPP, this project has to be structured. What kind of business is going to be this PPP? So the risk allocations is the key part in the structuring. The government will decide which risk is going to be transferred to private sector because this sector can manage better than the government. And finally, the procurement. The procurement means what is the strategy that the government is going to set up to implement this project and to find the best operator for the project. This means the bidding documents, this means the contract that is going to be in the market trying to attract private sectors. This can take between 2 and 4 years. No? Some projects can take more or less, depends the experience. But in the other side, we have the contracts management block. This means that we have several components that we have to focus on. For example, contract monitoring. This means once the contract is signed, the government has to make sure that the design, the construction, and the operation is in accordance with the contract provisions. So we need somebody to play this kind of role, to make sure that the operator is giving the level of service that is under the contract. Second, during the life of the contract, we will have conflicts. We will have disputes between the government and between the private party. And we have to set up a mechanism to make sure that we are getting the solutions for different kind of conflicts that the government and the operator can have during the implementation of the project. Then also we can have renegotiations for any way. Renegotiations can be strategic or can be one part can be interested to have a change in the contract, or these renegotiations can also be as a consequence of a shock. No? An external shock can change the structure of the contract, and this is the cost that has to be fixed like as a renegotiation. And finally, the termination of the project. The project can end because the term is finished, or the project can end because one party decides to finish the contract. These termination projects are not well regulated because nobody is thinking 30 years before what is going to happen or how are going to make this transition between the PPP and to another PPP or a PPP to the government. So, but the important thing is that we have 4 key components for the next 20 or 30 years, and we have to focus a lot what we are going to do during the contracts management stage. Why the procurement is important? Why the bidding mechanisms that we implement during the project preparation are important? Because most of the implications come from the structuring stage. For example, when Mexico implemented around 50 contracts in the road sector, 23 these contracts were rescued by the government because these operators have problems to continue with the project. The way that these contracts were awarded was the last term. This means that when the operators were very optimistic to have when they make the bids. So we have experiences, for example, that they only can need 10 years or 14 years or 15 years when maybe the project needs more years. So this was the implication of the bidding mechanism that the government of Mexico used has a big implication later because the government has to rescue 23 contracts. Then in the region we have a new mechanism that is very popular in Chile and Colombia, is the less present value of revenues. This tries to mitigate renegotiations based in demand, because if the demand is low, the term of the contract is automatically extended. If the demand is high, the term in the contract is less. So this is a way to mitigate renegotiations especially in the road sectors in Chile, in Colombia, and also we can see this kind of mechanism in the airports in Chile. Other countries are implementing other kind of bidding mechanisms, like the highest number of kilometers. Maybe countries like Peru will have problems in the future because there are developing roads, maybe in the areas we don't have too much demand. So this means maybe it cannot be efficient to have this kind of bidding mechanism. The lowest toll is was implemented in many PPPs in the federal level in Brazil, but the concern with this bidding mechanism is that you will have different tools in the same network. The same network is charging different level of tools for 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers, and you cannot have the control of the total network. So we can see that the bidding mechanisms that the governments are using to award projects have direct implications on the contract management performance. Let's see how the agencies and units are organized in Latin America to face contract management. And we can find two levels. For example, we have the ministerial level with 3 options. We can have a PPP unit in each ministry. Like in Mexico, we have a PPP unit in the Ministry of Transport. We have a PPP unit in the Ministry of Health. A second option can be a central PPP unit at the Ministry of Public Works, like in Chile. Chile concentrates in only one central PPP unit, all the PPP work. That's in the Ministry of Public Works in Chile. They do every kind of PPPs. They do not only transport, they do health, they do justice, they do buildings, they do health, roads, airports, every kind of PPP. Then we have a third option, that is a PPP agency, no, for transport infrastructure in the Ministry of Transport. That's the case of Colombia and Costa Rica. In the case of Colombia, we have the National Infrastructure Agency that is linked to the Ministry of Transport, that is in charge of the PPPs in the infrastructure, in the transport infrastructure sector. And also that's a similar case in Costa Rica. In these minister level agencies, we have both components. We have the project preparation and the contract management. These two blocks, these two parts of the cycle are under these units. Then we have in the region a different kind of institutional arrangement with separate agencies and also with more independent agencies. And we have three options. For example, we have a contract management and regulatory agency. That's the case of Peru. We have one for transport infrastructure, we have one for water, one for telecom, and one for energy. This is a very independent agencies that has to do not only with contract management, it's also with economic regulation. We have also agencies in Central America, like in Honduras, that this is a separate agency that make the contract management on behalf of the government, but the members of this agency has to be approved by the parliament in Honduras. And we have a third case of agencies more independent that we see in Brazil. We have different sectors in Brazil, like roads and rails, that are under the agency, the National Agency of Transport, that the Senate of Brazil has to approve all the members of this agency. So we have in the region agencies that are more independent, linked with the parliaments, and also we have agencies that are more linked to one sector. That's the case of the ministries of transport in the region. Let's see some lessons we have in the region. Let's start for the first one. Define the scope of the agency, the strategy in the organization. This is very important because what we have to do when we are doing contract management, we have to preserve value for money of the project. The project, when was awarded, has a value for money level that the contract management agency has to work to preserve or to increase. Second, well-structured projects during the structuring stage reduce and mitigate many problems in the future, and reduce the efforts that the teams in contract management has to do. And also, the most important thing, in my view, is the approach. When we are managing PPPs, we have to think in an output approach. This means we have to think in the level of services, not in the inputs that we need to produce the service. We are not looking about the cement, we are not looking about the stones, we are not looking about the prices for the construction. In contract management, we are focused on the results, focused on the outputs. What is the level of services for the user? So we see countries in the region that are improving this approach, like Mexico and Chile. And let's talk about the organization. When somebody thinking how we are going to set up the agency of a unit to deal with private sector in the implementation of the project, we have to take care what we are going to manage. Are we going to manage greenfield projects? Are we going to manage brownfield projects? So, because projects are different. If we are going to make contract management for greenfield projects, we have to focus more in the design and construction, because these projects are going to take many years to implement the services. If we are going to focus in brownfield projects, we have to focus also more maybe in the operational stage and less in the construction. So the flexibility is important, and the organization of the agency has to match these two kind of PPPs. We have to understand what are the incentives behind the operators. The operators are in these projects to make money, and we have to understand what are these kind of incentives. And this means we have to review all the information we have during the procurement, all the communication of the letters, to understand what are the clear incentives of the operators. And also we can see in the region a very important role of the users. The users organize it, sometimes in some countries organized in committees, or in other countries not well organized, but are providing a very good feedback to the operator about the quality, about the level of services, and also the social media is playing an important role, because the users, when are in front of a tool station, they can express their idea about the level of the service. They can share this perspective of the quality by the different social media mechanisms. And this is very important because this provides a very good feedback and direct feedback to the operator. And the operator are improving the level of services because they have this level of pressure coming from the users. The unit or the agency has to set up principles like efficiency, like transparency, and how these principles are going to be implemented to make the monitoring of the contract. Planning is very important because we are managing contracts that will have 20 or 30 years. So we have to plan our activities. For example, we have to organize what are the activities we are going to do for next year, to make sure that the operators or one operator is implementing all the commitments of the contract. So this is very important. And also organize, train the people, train the staff, and set up procedures. Some countries have already set up procedures and they have certified these procedures. That's the case of Chile and Peru, because people can change in the agency, but the procedure, the way that the people work, has to be the same and consistent. Also, predictability is very important because we are working with long-term contracts, and the way we decide during the story of the contract has to be predictable. So Chile is one of the countries that is reducing this discretionality because decisions are very consistent. The disclosure of information is also very, very important. There is a good way to see if we have skills and knowledge in an agency or unit. These units has to post it in the website, the contracts, the renegotiation, the performance report. The performance report has to show the way that the operator is implementing the project. And we see that countries like Brazil, Colombia, Chile, and Peru have a very good website that we can find this information very well organized, and many countries are following these lessons. Lesson 2, we have to involve the contract management team during the project preparation. Normally we have two teams. The team that works the project structuring during the 2 or 4 years, and we have a different team that has to do with the project implementation. But In some cases, or in most cases, these teams don't work together. This means that the team that is focused on the project, the incentives that they have are different because they want to finish the work soon, they want to award the project, and they are not looking for the long-term problems. So we need an interface between the teams that works in project preparation and the teams that works in contract management. In some cases, we have one agency, but even in that case, the teams are not connected, and we need to connect these both teams. These guys in the contract management team can provide a very good feedback when the contract is, or when the contract or when the project is under restructuring, because they have practical lessons and they can share with their colleagues that are making the project restructuring to make sure that they are setting the right contract. Good risk allocation is important because will reduce and mitigate many problems in the future. Clear contract provisions. Sometimes when the team that is implementing the project or managing the project will find that many provisions in the contract are not connected, are contradictory. So this is very, very important to make sure that the provisions are clear. And an important lesson from Chile that we have found is if you don't make a clear answer on the questions that during the procurement phase, you will have maybe a problem in the future that you cannot mitigate too much. That was the case of prisons in Chile, no? Because during the procurement stage, the bidder make different kind of questions, and when after the contract is signed, there was a conflict between the government and the operator, and the operator showed that during the procurement stage, the government didn't provide the right answers. Also, an important lesson is the clearance. The clearance in some countries, some key agencies have to provide clearance to the government to make sure that everything in the contract is is right. Lesson 3. I mentioned that the value for money, to preserve value for money is very important. And the Ministry of Finance has to make sure that the fiscal risk is under control. And when I say fiscal risk, I think in two topics. I think in the value for money, that was the reason to implement the project as a PPP, and the fiscal risk. How much money is the government going to pay, or what are the contingencies that the government has to take under consideration. So we have to monitor the fiscal risk every year, because when we have renegotiations that provide compensations to the operators, maybe we are reducing the value for money. If we reduce the value for money too much, maybe the implementation of the project was not good by a PPP. Maybe the traditional procurement was maybe the way that this project has to be implemented. So to preserve value for money is important. You can see in this slide that how Chile, Colombia, and Peru have provided compensations, different compensations to their operators in the road sector that finally will affect the value for money. So this is one of the findings that you can see how important is to preserve the value for money, and how important is the role of the Ministry of Finance. You can see the value for money coming from the fiscal transfers to the operators. and what is the direct connection between them. Lesson 4. Private sector is looking for more independent and professional contract management agencies or units. Maybe 10 years ago, private sector likes more to deal with agencies that are part of the government or maybe the same of the grantor. But then we can have a conflict of interest. So now they are preferring agencies with more independence because they have to implement a project that has 20 or 30 years and they need somebody in the government that has to manage this with more independence. That's the case of one of the key operators we have in the region, a Portuguese global operator, that they think that it's very important in the government to have an agency that is a little separate from the government, and they can make sure that the contract in the parties, the government in the operator, are providing their obligations and commitments in the contract. Lesson 5. When we are starting PPPs and we are going to the debut, we are going to the first presentation, we need some key practices. We need sometimes regulations because the law maybe is not enough. We have to set up how we are going to make this supervision or this contract monitoring. Maybe we need guidelines to plan how we are going to deal with the contracts, to disclosure these plans maybe at the beginning of the year, and to provide reports on the website. Set up the principles that I have already mentioned, that are normally the one transparency, efficiency, consistency, in preserve value for money, and we have to define the ways how we are going to implement the contract monitoring. It can be on the field, or it can be at the office, or it can be a combination. And the approach, output approach, not input approach. No? Then we need to train the staff and certify the procedures. This means that the people that are doing the contract management have to understand very well the contract. Very well the contract, because this is the basic instrument. They have to know the contract. They have to understand what is the contract trying to say. And they have to implement procedures to take decisions, to make sure that these provisions are in place, or the operator is giving the service that is in the contracts. And you have to work in teams. This is a team working. We have to combine different skills between the engineering skills, the financial skills, and the law skills. These guys have to work together to manage these contracts with these three dimensions, separate dimensions: the technical dimension, the financial dimension, and the legal dimension, because a contract is a combination and integration of these dimensions. Continuing with the same lesson, we have to organize an agency taking also under consideration how the operator is organized. And we have to put in their shoes. And we have to provide them some tips that they have to organize and link with the agency or unit. For example, how it works. If the operator can have a single contact point in the SPV, this is good, because this single contact point will coordinate with all the units and departments in the SPV, in the operator. Because sometimes when we have different heads, different contacts, they are not well coordinated. So we need a single contact point in the SPV. The experience is showing that this single contact point started as a coordinator, and later is coming as a unit, because as a unit they need more coordination, and they have to take decisions. In this coordination part, in the operator has a good knowledge about the contract, not only the technical knowledge, has all the knowledge, because if we have contacts with separate parts on the operator, we will see that there is not a good connection, because one part can be the technical, one part can be the marketing or the operation. So these contact single point are working very well in the region. Set up the contract commitment matrix and organize in 4 or 5 groups. This is very important, because when we sign the contract, we will have hundreds of obligations, hundreds of provisions, and we have to organize with a matrix approach. And when we have all the commitments in the matrix, we can organize in groups. We can say all that obligation that has to do with investment is one group, operation second group, commercial and administrative. This is very important, because with this kind of organization we can allocate resources. We can define what is the thing we need for the operations, for the commercial, and for the administrative. And also we will have a transversal, a cross-sectoral approach to implement contract management. Also, the horizontal contract management is important, because only we need few people, 1 or 2 or 3 people working in one group. For example, we can have a little team that has to do with commercial, with different contracts, not only with one contract. And they have to monitor all the commercial provisions in 5 or 10 contracts. And they are using the same knowledge, they are using the same practices to monitor this group of commitments, and they can replicate it in different contracts. Small teams, very small teams, but with the capacity to be supported by outsources or by specialized services. We don't need to have all the specialized parties in the agency. We can hire, we can outsource that. But we need people, we need a team with management, with team skills that can manage this combination between outsourcing in between staff. Lesson 6. When we start a relationship between the government and a private party, we have to educate the operator. Many times the operator has not too much knowledge about contract management, or they want to implement underway. And also good communication is important, because we are going to have a long-term relationships. This means 20 or 30 years. So we have to start making a very good coordination, having meetings. Meetings can start, for example, once a week, then every other week, every other month, and because both parties has to understand the contract, has to share how these contracts are going to be implemented. And very important thing, it's like a wedding, never fight. But as a contract management unit, you have to show authority. You have the power of the government, you have the power of the authority, and you have to show that you have power. Never meet alone. The best practices we have in the region is that a team has to participate in meetings, at least 2 people. No, not only one, at least 2 people. And we can have posted these meetings in the website, making sure that we are having these meetings. We have to show authority gradually. Sometimes, because what will happen in the region happens that the operators has a way in the contract to have a relationship with the contract management agency, but sometimes this operator goes to other levels. They go to the ministry level, the minister level, and they say, okay, I have already talked with the minister, and we are going to have this decision. And this is not good, because the contract has all the provisions to make this relationship, and the parties are not. It's not good if the parties are taking other ways, separate ways, different than the contract. We have to use easy language in the reports. We have to apply penalties when it's necessary, and to make public these penalties. And maybe one important thing, we have to be prepared to go to Parliament. Parliament is going to be very concerned about what is happening with the PPP program in a country. And they will ask you to go to the committee to explain then what kind of work you are doing. So you have to prepare very well, but in the political approach. They want to hear how many penalties has you apply, what is the number of kilometers that the operator is having, is the operator having everything on time. So they want to hear that things. They don't want to hear about the engineering, about the legal, technical. No, they don't want to. So you have to be prepared to go to the parliament or to talk with politicians in their languages, because this is part of the war. And when you have high-level projects, or we have a project with high profile, you will be talking with the media, or you will be talking with the politicians. And finally, we have two quick lessons. We can see that in the last 3 years, the governments in the regions are implementing improvements in the capacity to plan and oversee PPPs in the region. We see very good improvements in Brazil. Also, we see improvements in Peru, improvements in some countries in Central America, or in new players like Uruguay and Paraguay. Also, we see improvements. We don't have in the region a developed country in PPP's terms. We are improving, and we see also in the next slide, the last lesson, that in the case of the dispute resolution mechanism, also we can see that the region is improving. As much green you are going, is better. There are countries that don't have a PPP program, like Argentina and Venezuela, but Mexico, Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Uruguay, Chile are working. One country is more, one country is less, but they are improving in general the dispute resolution mechanism. So we have monitoring these improvements in the region. We have the colleagues in IDB are making this work every year or every other year to make sure about the environment for PPPs is improving in the region. Finally, I will summarize and make some conclusions for you. First, focus on the scope and set up a good strategy for the agency or unit. Involve contract management team during the PPP procurement, because these guys will be prepared to know what they have to do after the contract is signed. Always preserve value for money. That's the reason to have a contract management unit. We have to preserve the value for money of the project. The mechanisms to reduce the conflict are by the private sector prefers a more independent agencies. A very important thing is to have an output approach, because we are not looking the inputs, we are looking the results. We have to improve planning, regulations, procedures, and hire talented people and provide them incentives to work a long-term career in the agency or unit. Educate the operator. As much you educate, the relationship is going to be better. Good communication with the operator, with public entities, all the partners you have in the government, politicians, and a lot of transparency. Many thanks. Now you can please send me your comments, your questions, but let's go also to our quiz. You will see that we have 4 questions. The 4th question is how the performance of a contract management agency can be measured, and we have options. And please make your answer. We can see that the 100% of our audience is choosing by preserving value for money. That is correct, because that is the key thing in this presentation. To preserve value for money is the only reason that we have in the units and agencies for project implementation. Let's see the next question. Next question is why the agency should take care to preserve the value for money. If we have also 4 options, please make your choice. And the 100% of you are thinking that because the PPP project could end up being more expensive than the same project under public works. The answer is correct. No, because when we preserve value for money, no, we are thinking that maybe the second alternative for this project was a traditional procurement. Very good. Let's go to the next question. Is why governments have not done too much effort in contract management, but a little more effort in project structuring? Please make your selection, and we can comment this question. We have people making the selection of option 1, option A, and option C. No, you can choose. You have little time to make it. Option C also, many people are now selecting, are leaving option B, coming to option C. Okay, we are going to close the answers. We have 2 main answers. A and C are the most of the answers selected, but the right answer is C. Both answers above are valid, because in the practice, when the teams are structuring a project, they are not looking about the future, because new governments are coming in the next 20 years, and they can face all the problems that also we will have in the future. So let's go to the next question, the final question, and we please choose your right answer. What type of PPP contracts are more complex to monitor? Those that contractual clauses are unclear, those in which the risks have not been well allocated, that we discussed this also, in which the government must make periodical payments. The government has to pay, so the government has to make sure that the level of services are okay, and all of above. This means A, B, and C. If you think that the D is the right answer, please choose, or you mean A, or you mean B, or C. Okay, we are going to close. Around 80% of the audience think that D is correct, is 100% correct. All the answers A, B, and C are correct. This means that the alternative D is the right answer for this question. Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm going to go to the most important part of this session. We don't have too much time, but we are going to try to give you an answer um, to your questions.
So we have a few questions. Shall I read a few too?
Yeah, first I want to thank many of my colleagues. No, I want to thank, for example, Luis Bonifaz from Peru. Uh, yes, and his comment is very important because he clarified that my approach is from the public sector approach, not from the private side. Many thanks for this good comment, Jose Luis. And um, also, I would like to thank Caroline Lobo that he is making a work for the Ministry of Finance in India, and I hope these ideas can be useful for Lobo. Also, I remember that last year we make a presentation on contract management in Delhi for the government of India. As you know, India has one of the largest PPP programs in the world, and also they are facing important challenges in contract management. Our colleague Kalelang is based in New Delhi, and he knows that last year the World Bank Institute with the Ministry of Finance delivered a workshop, and the government invited Brazil, Chile, and the bank to discuss the lessons. And one question important is what is the recommended proportion of risk and financial share in PPP? This is a question that has to do more with project structuring. Depends the project. We have to see the risk, how much risk we can transfer. This depends about the cost also. As much risk we transfer is going to be more expensive for the government. So we have to make a balance between the level of risk we are trying to transfer and the cost. So the government has to make a trade-off between the cost of the risk and the amount of risk that is trying to transfer. We have questions about also what is the connection between the PPPs and also the trade is crucial. Most of the PPPs has to do with transport logistics like ports, roads, airports, and rails. And also we can connect this infrastructure with logistic infrastructure like silos, like storage facilities. We have a very good PPP in silos in India that was awarded by the bank as one of the 40 of the top PPPs we have in the last years in the world. I have too many questions, but we have a little time, so I will select some of the few I can have with you. A comparison between Latin America and the UK. There is a big difference. In the UK, we have this the federal level making PPPs, and also we have municipalities making good PPPs. And the key difference is maybe the level of skills. The Partnership UK and Infrastructure UK have focused a lot in the last years trying to develop capacity. In the UK, there is a reform in the PPP sector, and now the government is supporting more the programs. Even that kind of decisions are not common in Latin America. For example, to introduce warranties for the project, from the public sector warranties, or to participate with equity in the project. So it's quite different approaches between the UK. Even that difference, we are learning a lot from the UK. For example, the value for money was one of the key instruments that we are implementing in Latin America. Countries like Mexico, like Colombia, like Peru, like Chile, have different ways to make sure that the projects are having value for money. About how contracts can be negotiated and conditions not be listed in the contract. Happens many times. New risks can appear in the contracts, and also the contract management agency has to make sure what are the new risks and how to manage these new risks, who is going to have the responsibility of the risks. And second, the government has to set up rules for negotiation and renegotiation, and also to develop some skills. One of the lacks that the government have is the lack of negotiation. In the government, we are not well prepared for negotiate. In private sector, they negotiate every day, everything every day. That's a different thing in the case of governments. In the case of Latin America, the negotiations in many cases are not allowed because the law is very clear. Once the project is awarded, you cannot negotiate nothing. You have to sign the contract. But in the case of the Europe, of the UK, of Africa, or India, after the project is awarded, the government can negotiate. We have to thank all of you, and I will continue providing the answers for those that are making the answers right now. Many thanks to you to hear this presentation, and I am very happy to continue providing you with more findings. Please participate in the feedback. This is very important to continue this series organized by WBI. And for those that are asking the PowerPoint is going to be available soon. The team is going to work, and also we will have recorded. We are going to tape and summarize this presentation and post it in WBI site. So you will have the presentation, you will have a summary tape of this presentation, and you can send me any questions, and I can have the opportunity to answer to you. I would like to thank my colleagues in WBI for organizing this series of webinars in PPPs. Thank you.